Welcome to this rapid gender assessment virtual workshop. As you may know, the workshop is divided in two sessions. Today's session number one, we are going to understand the gender analysis for a rapid assessment. How important is gender analysis for a rapid assessment? Through the workshop, we are going to give you guidelines, very critical guidelines to be able to first to understand how important is gender equality in tourist development, but also in order to help you to be able to carry out rapid gender analysis in tourist development. I'm going to share with you the agenda. This is the agenda for today. So as you can see, first, I really would like to get to know each other. We are going to start with the introduction of each of us. We are in very different places, so it's very interesting to know why you are here. Then I'm going to share with you the learning objectives and workshop outline, what we are going to learn today. And then we are going to answer these very important questions, which is why does gender matter in tourism? Now we are in a critical point that we really need to understand why gender equality is so important for tourist development. And then we are going to learn, we are going to understand what is a gender analysis, because sometimes some people don't understand quite well how important is gender analysis and what are the different pieces that we need to ingrain in our daily life and also in our daily work to be able to analyze the context from a gender point of view. Then we are going to answer the what and why rapid gender assessment in the tourist sector. I'm going to give you some tips there. I'm going to explain you the step to be able to carry out a rapid gender assessment. And then I'm going to explain you a beautiful homework. We are going to learn today the first instrument to be able to carry out a rapid gender assessment. I'm going to explain you the first matrix that we are going to share in this workshop. So I think that this is going to be great. I would like to stress that I truly believe that this workshop is a milestone achievement to really understand the importance of gender equality in tourist development. So I think that you are going to finish this workshop with a well understanding about this tool, which is very important to start gender mainstreaming in tourist development as well. The objective of the workshop. So as you may know, as you saw in the invitation that we sent you for this workshop, and as Ben explained at the very beginning of the workshop, this workshop is quite based in the Center Stage project. This project is very important for tourist development because it's putting at the core of tourist development, the consequence of COVID-19 in women's in tourism. As you may know, COVID-19 has really shaken the tourist sectors. It has had an immense negative impact on tourist development, and women in tourism has been the most affected ones by this, by all this negative impact, unfortunately. We are going to talk about this later on. But at the same time, and this is the good side of all this, COVID-19, all the consequence we have been with this pandemic over the last 2 years, all the kind of report that we have been doing, now we are starting with some field mission, we realize now it's very clear how important is gender analysis for tourist development, because we have found many missing points that before COVID-19 were not very clear, but now we really have to fill out these missing points. And the best way to do this is through gender analysis in tourist development. It's not only that we want to see many women participating in tourism, it's beyond that. We want to carry out a gender analysis. We want to understand why tourist development is so important for women, for gender inclusions, for minorities as well. So we really need to embrace a better analysis on gender issues in tourist development. So for that reason, the overall objective of the workshop is to learn actually how to undertake a rapid gender assessment in tourist development. And we, at the end of this workshop, participants, you will be able first to understand why gender matters in tourist development. You will be able also to grasp the importance of gender analysis as well, to be able to structure a rapid gender assessment. This is very important because that is going to organize your ideas, the kind of work that you have to do, and then to be able to produce a rapid gender assessment report on the tourist sector. So you will be able to carry out these 4 actions in your professional life. And the workshop, through the workshop, we are going to answer 2 very important questions. The first one is, how important is a rapid gender assessment to achieving gender equality in tourism? And second question is, what are the main factors to take into consideration when developing a rapid gender assessment in tourism? So these are the objectives. This is the outline for the workshop. So we are going to start right now with the first model. I'm very happy. So welcome to the workshop one more time of rapid gender assessment in tourism. So in this model, you will learn how important is gender in tourism. And we are going to learn this based on the UNWTO pillars on gender and tourism. So as you may know, globally, tourism has been positioned as a sector with the capacity to reduce poverty and foster national development, right? So this is one of the main reasons why tourism is so important for so many countries. These 2 reasons, reduction of poverty and national development, is like the main doors to really understand how important is tourism for many countries globally, at global level, right? So, and this is quite a link with the importance of tourism for sustainable development. We have seen this, for example, previously in the Millennium Development Goals, and currently we have the Agenda 2030 and the SDGs, where tourism is definitely a very important sector to achieve this agenda. But also in this current agenda for sustainable development, we realize how important is gender equality, because in the Agenda 2030 and the SDGs, gender equality is not just a component, it's a strategy that we have to mainstream along the Agenda 2030 and the SDGs. So for that reason, we have to be able to mainstream gender equality in tourist development. And in order to do that, we need a gender analysis. But the first stage that we need to understand, we really need to be very clear about how important is gender equality in tourist development. Because so far, we still have many challenges from a practical point of view. I'm talking, we have many challenges to really include, to really integrate gender equality in the tourist planning and management. We still have there many missing points. We need, for example, more tools. We need more content. We need more, we have to work together in order to embrace this kind of knowledge, to really include gender equality in tourist planning and management. So here in this next slide, we have the diagram. This diagram is showing the essential elements that we have to consider if we really want to include gender equality in tourist development. As you may know, these are the UNWTO pillars on gender and tourism. You can find it in the first and in the second global report of women in tourism. And at the core, unfortunately, we have COVID-19. This is the current context. We cannot avoid this context right now because unfortunately, the impact has been immense and very negative for tourist development. So let's make a quick review of each of the pillars, taking into account that at the core we have COVID-19. Ansam, yes, please.
Can we ask now or comment, or do you prefer to keep it to the end?
If you don't mind, we keep it to the end of this
thank
model.
You. Sure,
yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ansam. So let's start with the first one. The first one is employment. Everybody knows how important is tourist employment for women, right? So in this, this is one of the most common reasons for considering gender equality in tourism, because globally, the vast majority of workers are women. So for example, as you can see in the second global report of women in tourism, globally, 54% of people working in tourism are women. Sorry, I don't know what happened here. So, sorry for this. So 50% of the people working in tourism are women. So if we want to see this, how many women are working in tourism by regions, in America, for example, 57%. This is the percentage of women working in tourism. In Africa, it's 69%. In Asia and the Pacific, it's 53%. In Europe, it's 53%. In Middle East, is lower, is the 9%. And globally, it's the 54%. So this is very important. So simply put this way, this illustrates the need to know more about gender equality in tourism. I mean, we are facing a sector where we can see that the vast majority of workers are women. So it's like, it's very clear, right? I have to conduct a gender analysis in this sector because we have many women. We have different dynamics. Women are working in the different levels of the tourist value chain. So we need to understand this from the gender lens, right? So this is a very positive side. This is very positive. Tourism is creating employment for women. But some research has been showing that the high percentage of women working in tourism sometimes doesn't necessarily go hand in hand with quality jobs, for example, or with decent labor conditions, or with strong career prospects, or with equal wage for women. I don't know if you are aware, but the gender pay gap in tourism is 14%. Is high, right? And this is like a bizarre situation because the vast majority of people working in tourism are women, but we have a gender pay gap. So it's like we have to think about this issue to have a clear acknowledge about how important is gender analysis and what are going to be the priorities that we want to include in our rapid gender assessment as well, right? But we also have another kind of context. In some countries, women are not the vast majority of workers in tourism. And this is also a door to understand the importance of gender equality in tourism. Why? Because here it seems that these women are facing with gender-specific barriers to be able to work in tourist development in the service sector, right? So actually, for that reason, gender is a mainstream strategy for tourist development because we can conduct this kind of analysis. It doesn't matter if we have many women or a few women working in tourism. The most important issue that we have to achieve through a gender analysis in the employment right now, taking into account the consequence of COVID-19, is that we have to we have to promote a better and safe job for women in tourism, right? So that is the most important part, at least for me, is the most important one. Because even though we have many women working in tourism and maybe the the type of work that they have is not very good. I mean, I really want that we have to mainstream safe and better job for women in tourism. And what do I mean with this? I mean, for example, we have to reduce the gender pay gap. We have to reduce also violence in the workforce. I don't know if you are aware, but in 2019, the International Labour Organization stated that violence and harassment in the hospitality sector is very high. So we have to be aware about this, because these is an urgent concern that we need to overcome through our gender analysis. So this is a safe and better job for women, right? Or maybe the promotion of childcare facilities for women that are working in tourism. That is also something quite linked to this employment condition for women, right? So this is about the employment. And another point here, that unfortunately, due to COVID-19, many women lost the job that they had in tourism, right? So for example, I have seen some data that is not official data of some countries, and in some countries, 80% of the loss of employment in tourism are women, right? So they are facing this situation. And this is also a very bizarre situation, because we are the vast majority of people working in tourism, but we are the vast majority of people that lost the job because due to COVID-19, right? So we have to think about this, because we have to think why this is happening, right? So maybe, I don't know, maybe this can be linked to the kind of contract that women have when they are working in tourist company. It has to be with flexibilization, or maybe they have part-time jobs, or maybe they have a very precarious work in tourism, or maybe they have difficulties. They work in a part-time way because they have difficulties to take care of their children, because there is a lack of childcare facilities, or a lack of safe and better transport for these women. So we have to think these kind of factors that are quite important to really understand how we can integrate gender equality in this first pillar, that is employment. So if we move to the second one, this is about entrepreneurship, right? So tourism has two major impacts when talking on women's entrepreneurs. And the first one is a fact that tourism creates opportunities for women to create business in tourism. That is for sure, it's a fact. We have beautiful practices. I have met many women that have a beautiful experience in tourism as an entrepreneur. I have seen many beautiful things because of it. But also the other point that we have to include in the entrepreneurship pillars is that tourism also creates the kind of environments that enable women to create businesses in sector linked to the tourist sector. So for that reason, tourism create many opportunities, not only within the sector, but also in other kind of sector that are linked to tourism. And to understand this we have to understand this because this is quite important, for example, to create the tourist value chain, to really see where women are working as entrepreneurs, right? And at some point, this is one of the main challenges that we have right now, because we have a kind of idea where women are working for a company in tourism. Most of the time, this is a general information, most of the time they are working in the accommodation sector, in this level of the tourist value chain. But actually, we don't have a clear idea where the women that have their own business are working along the tourist value chain, right? Another point here linked to the entrepreneurship pillars, and this is one of the priorities that we have to face right now, because we realize that it's very important, because the consequence coming from COVID-19 is the informal sector. many women are creating their businesses in tourism and they're in the informal economy, right? And this is not because they don't want to be in the formal economy. It's because sometimes roles and stereotypes leave them working in their houses. For example, the vast majority of women that create their own businesses are creating in the house. Sometimes the vast majority of women, they do that. And they don't have also the resources and the knowledge to be able to participate in the informal sector. So for that reason, we can find, you know, I have seen this many times, for example, in Latin America, many women that are working under informal economy. And when you are working under informal economy, you are working in a precarious, temporary, and unprotected manner. So this is a very important point that we need to consider when we want to, if we want to analyze the entrepreneurship part of gender and tourism. Another point here that women that are creating their own business, sometimes they cannot invest more times in the business because they don't have as an asset the time, the enough of time to invest in their businesses. And this is because there is the vast majority of women, they are facing with the unpaid domestic and care work. So this is something that for women entrepreneurs is something that we really need to consider. Sometimes when we think in the provision of care child facilities or care child services, we always think in the women that are working for a company, right? But for women entrepreneurs, these kind of facilities are also very important. And this is quite linked with public services, for example, the provision of public services linked to the care services for child, but also for elderly people. Another point here that now is a priority for women's entrepreneurs that we need to think about this is the access to financial instruments, right? So in general points, women's entrepreneurs, they face this barrier. For them, it's very difficult to access to financial support, to financial instruments. Most of the times, women, they do have access to microfinance support, but it's not enough to grow with your business. It's not enough to have a real business. And if to this situation you add the lack of time to invest in the business, you have there a context that you have to analyze for your own context, because it is something very important. Now we have, there is a need to first to promote financial instrument for tourist development, and also financial instrument, gender sensitive financial instrument. Because right now, many women that have their own company, they don't have, they are struggling. They cannot pay, for example, the loan that they asked before COVID-19, for example. But at the same time, they need financial support to restart their own businesses. So we have to think about all these pieces from a national point of view, from the private sector, from international organization. We have to work together in order to improve the access of women to financial instruments as well. And why they have sometimes, why women have sometimes, not sometimes, it's very often problems to access to financial instruments, because they have very small businesses. Sometimes the management of these businesses is for random. In Latin America, for example, it's very common to see that most of the time they are subsistence businesses. I mean, I only want to have these businesses to feed my children, to pay the education of my children, but they are not thinking about from a growth strategy to be successful with the businesses. So sometimes they don't have the criteria to access to financial instrument. For that reason, we have to be very flexible with this kind of financial instrument for women that are creating their businesses in tourist development. Then we have the community and civil society pillar. This is a key pillar to strengthen the capacity of tourism to foster gender equality. Why? Because community and civil society they know very good what is happening in that context. We have to work with women organizations, with feminist organizations, with men engaged organizations. We have seen many men right now that are engaged with gender equality, and that is very good news for everybody. So we have to include all this kind of organization, this community, the civil society, to have a better gender analysis. And now is a key part because they know what are the consequences of COVID-19 in tourism. You have to ask them what are the main consequences. It's because sometimes, and for gender analysis, this is very important, the knowledge must come from population, from women that are on the field. This is very important. Then we have leadership. So in spite of having a good number of women working in tourism in a company or working as an entrepreneur, or we have also women as Ministry of Tourism, and there is a long path to take women to leadership in tourism as well. We are the vast majority of workers, but we are not the vast majority of people that is on leadership positions. So this is something that we have to improve. We have to reduce this gender gap, and we have to improve the position of women in leadership position as well. When I work leadership in tourism, I like to work quite a lot based in what I call the quality of participation. What do I mean with this? First, I mean, this is the level of participation of women and men in an action. I mean, what is the level of participation? Who is participating more? Do we have more women than men in this action, or do we have more men than women in this action? This is the first step. But the most important part of the quality of participation is the degree to which such participation offers opportunities that can lead to women's empowerment and more equitable relationship between women and men. This is the key part that we have to include when we are working leadership, okay? And we want to see on leadership position, gender sensitive professionals, okay? This is another important point because it's the only way to integrate the transformative change needed in tourism to achieve gender equality, right? And then we have the last pillar, which is measurement. And this is about mostly with policymaking in tourism. When we are including gender equality, this is beyond the goodwill intentions, beyond how many times you mention women in that particular document. It's beyond that. We want to see mechanism, we want to see tools, action, we want to see budget to implement gender actions. Most of the time I have reviewed many tourist strategy and tourist policies, and the budget for gender equality is like 1% of the overall budget or even less. So we don't have enough budget to do this. So we have to push forward a gender sensitive policy making. And the best way to do this is to include an appropriate budget for actions to improve gender equality in tourism. So with this explanation of why gender matters in tourism, taking into account these pillars, I am finishing this model. It will be very nice if you can carry out this kind of analysis in your own context, because like that you will have a tailor-made analysis of what is happening around you. I would like that we have a discussion right now. I would like to have a discussion based on this question. So taking into account what I told you, what I just explained you, I really would like to know what are the challenges and opportunities in your own context. So if you can share it with the rest, because maybe we are going to have we can share some points, maybe the context is quite different. So it would be very nice if you could give us an idea of what is happening in your context on gender and tourism right now. So, Ansam, would you like to start? Because I know that you have a question and maybe you can tell me a little bit about the challenge or opportunities in your own context.
Thank you. My question, I think you answered it, because usually when we go back to any document related to WTO, UN WTO, you mentioned the four pillars, and today you add, I think, the measurement, but you answer it by talking about in details about each pillar. So it's clear now for me. But talking about the challenges and opportunities in Jordan and women in tourism in Jordan, we said that, and if we want to talk about a specific situation that occurred by COVID-19, one of the problem or what they face because of COVID-19, many of the employees had to leave their job, or they asked them to leave job. And at the same time, if we want to check, we find that the largest number was women. This is one of them. The other thing that they face, talking about not entrepreneurship or private sector, talking about the employers, if the employees, talking about the woman when she's as employee, she faces something because after the lockdown and they closed the schools, closed the kindergarten, so the woman has to work and go to her job, but her kids and has to stay at home. So she faces one of this. And may I comment on something? You mentioned that working woman in the at house as obstacle or negative. For me, sometimes I find it as positive, to be honest, and sometimes we find it as a solution, because she can care about her kids and doing her home tasks, and at the same time she can manage time to do both at the same time. So if we can look at this working from home, we can use it as opportunity, not obstacle, to be honest, but if it work good. Talking about opportunities, to be honest, also talking about specific situation occurred by COVID-19, and most of us use the online. So this helped most of the employees, or if for entrepreneurship and the women, to be connect with the external world by internet and online. Thank you.
Yeah. And Sam, thank you so much for your last comment about women working, when women are creating their businesses in the house. I think that is not a positive or a negative way. I think, I think that the most important thing is to provide them services when they need it, maybe they need someone or a service to take care of their children, to do, for example, a business, or to help to go to a meeting, So it doesn't matter where women are creating their businesses. The most important thing is that we guarantee safe and better employment for women. We have to create the services, for example, and we have to also reduce what I call the gender norm. I have seen that many women that are working in their house, when they go to the bank and because they need a loan, they don't receive that loan because the people in the bank, they think, oh, she's working in the house, she's not going to have enough of time to take care of the business. This is the problem. The problem is not where women are creating the business. The problem is the context that is around the business that these women is running. So we have to change, we have to reduce this gender norm to be able to provide more services as loan, childcare facilities, and to provide them with the opportunity to be part of the formal economy of tourism. That is another point that we have to face. But actually, for me, it's not an issue. I mean, I have never, in my professional career, I have never said that to create your own business in your house is a bad thing. No. We have to promote better and safe jobs for women, and that's it. That is the most important part of all this. Ansam, thank you so much for that comment, very useful. So anyone else? Maybe, I don't know, someone from another country, for example, in Malaysia. Mira, would you like to share any challenge or opportunity that you have right now there?
Yeah, thanks, Daniela. I think the situation for Malaysia is that we've enjoyed quite a healthy gender balance in terms of the tourism workforce. I think 1 in 4 of all employees in Malaysia are in the tourism sector. It's quite a large sector, and about exactly half of that has comprised of women. So for example, I have some figures here. In 2018, it was 49%. 2019, it was exactly 50%. And after the pandemic, we saw a drop of 2% to 48%. But just like you said, we know the employment figures, but not the extent to which the participation occurs, at which level of qualification, and of course, a lot occurring in the informal sector as well. So there is a gender data gap, I suppose, in that sense, because we have very simple figures on the participation of women in tourism. I suppose because of that healthy gender balance, it has not quite been looked at as a priority area as yet as well. It is yet to be seen, I think, the true extent of the pandemic on women's employment in tourism, but we've had some specific measures in last year's budget called the Gender Responsive Budget, which addresses all women entrepreneurs. There is a capital program, I think, for startups at home, and also the appointment of women to leadership positions. But this is not tourism specific. So we don't quite yet have specific prescriptive measures for women in tourism. That would be some initial thoughts.
Yeah, that is a very good comment, because we have to face two kinds of situations when we want to integrate gender equality in tourism. For example, taking into account financial instrument. Sometimes we find a wide range of financial instruments that are not focused on tourism. And then we find a gender responsive budget, but they are not focused on tourism. So it's like we have to create the mechanism to create gender responsive budget focused on tourism, because that is one of the key measures and action that we have to support through our gender analysis. That is definitely something very important. Mira, thank you so much. I don't know if Nafal from Saudi Arabia, do you have any kind of information about the main challenge or opportunities that you see right now in the context?
I actually see a great opportunity in women empowerment in Saudi Arabia, especially today, since there's like great effort to invest in small businesses that are related to tourism in Saudi Arabia. I think there's a great opportunity for women to join join the workforce in tourism-related businesses. And we've seen some results, even though in such a short time. We've seen women join tourism-related jobs, whether it's handicrafts, whether it's in the accommodation businesses, hotels, and so on. But yeah, I think a great opportunity and also a great way to allow women to join the workforce is to invest in those businesses that are that need to grow. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Nafal. I have seen that your colleague Razan is here with us. Razan, are you there? Would you like to introduce yourself? And maybe you can share an opportunity or challenge.
Hi, everyone. This is Razan Youssef. I'm from Ministry of Tourism in Saudi Arabia, and Nafal is my colleague. We're working in the multilateral department. So we work directly with the UNWTO and other international organizations. Thank you for this workshop. It's very insightful. The topic is very important as well. And regarding women's participation in the tourism sector in Saudi Arabia, it's important to highlight that we have a tourism strategy in Saudi Arabia that's linked to the kingdom's vision 2030. And Saudi has made a very great effort in facilitating and encouraging women to participate in the sector through improved legislation, new policies, and education. Also through supporting SMEs and career development. So with that, there are great hubs for women to take leadership positions in the sector, and also with the aim that the ministry is going to through creating 1 million new jobs across the sector by 2030, and increasing the contribution of the national tourism contribution to 10%. So this will build new opportunities for women to participate in the sector. And also I recall there's a study done with the digital research company on job attractiveness across the kingdom tourism sector. And the key findings indicate that 75% of Saudis have positive perspective or positive opportunities. They think there's a great opportunity in the jobs in the tourism sector. The finding says that 83% they say that jobs across tourism sector is attractive, and this is there was no significant difference by gender when it comes to overall sector interest level. So it's a great indication when it comes to the tourism sector in Saudi Arabia.
That's very good. So now the efforts should be to guide that kind of opportunity to improve the situation of women and to open the doors for women to participate, taking into account the quality of participation, what I explained you right now, in tourist development. Razan, thank you so much for your comments. Anyone else from Jordan want to speak? Any other thought? I have seen that someone from Egypt is here. Shiran, are you there? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. In Egypt, there is a big effort from the government to increase the number of women working in tourism, but still the percentage of the females in the industry is not that high because we have some social constraints, some destinations, tourism destinations that are so far. Some families do not like to send their girls or wives to work there. So we still have a lot of work, but the government launched a strategy for women empowerment in 2017. And in tourism. We are working with the whole government to increase the number of females and to overcome the challenges that they face trying to work in tourism.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for your comments. Yes, sorry.
I want to add that in the governmental sector, the percentage of women working is a little bit high. I think it's equal to men, but the problem is that the percentage of women in leadership position is still very low.
Yeah. And what we just discussed right now, sometimes the working condition of women working in tourism could be improved as well, right?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharon. I also would like to I don't know how to say your name, so sorry, LS Costana from South Africa. Would you like to introduce yourself, please, and let us know what are the challenge and opportunity in your context?
Good morning. I don't know if you can see me. Oh, it's dark here where I am.
Yeah, it's a little bit dark because maybe the light is not quite now it's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Lumkas Kosana from the National Department of Tourism. I am responsible for the Women in Tourism program, which was established in 2013. It's a women empowerment program to empower women who are working in the tourism sector. I don't know where to start with the challenges that we have in the sector for women. First of all, they are not recognized. The women who run businesses in the rural areas, you find out their partners or husbands, they cannot stand that these women are running their own businesses. So there are really gender and cultural issues. We have projects in the rural settings where it is believed culturally that, for instance, we have a project called Baleni Salt Harvesting. Elderly women go to the river and harvest salt. But because of cultural beliefs, they believe that only women who have reached their menopause stage can go to that site because they believe that the site is sacred. So that is a big challenge for the young people who can add value in terms of value chain, because the salt research was done. They discovered that it has some health properties. It has helped people who are suffering from diabetes and high blood pressure. So there is an opportunity for a bigger value chain. But if these women, elder women, they are saying no, because young people, you are still going through your menstruation. And when you go through your menstruation, you are not clean or sacred to come and work in our space. So we really have those kind of cultural beliefs and gender stereotypes. We have a problem such as capacity building. The women, they are not capacitated. The women, they are not capacitated to run these businesses. We have infrastructure issues. Women are running beautiful projects in the site, especially in rural areas, but to get there in terms of roads, electricity, lights, you have women who are running B&Bs, they have turned their homes into guest houses, but there is no infrastructure in terms of running water and electricity. So those are the biggest issues that we are facing as women in the tourism sector, especially in rural settings. That is just a few of those.
Yeah, that is a very good comment, because all this kind of services that you don't have right now there, all this kind of challenge are quite linked with what I told you, with safe and better job for women in tourism, definitely, right? Luca, thank you so much for your comments. I have Hannah. Hannah, please, would you like to say?
Okay,
something?
thank you.
Yeah.
I want to say, like my mission to something my colleague and Sam said about women working in tourism. They have many challenges, such as they work from home and have children. Maybe they and also come to work in tourism sector and work. They don't have a suitable time to arrange their work, thinking about their children. So they have stress, and so they do work 1 in 2 in 1, 3 in 1, maybe 10 in 1. So it's they do a very hard work. I want to mention highlight about about women work. They have own works. Maybe they are afraid to say to anybody about their own works, about the taxes they paid. So they cannot arrange their work in suitable way. Maybe in this, I think in this workshop, we are going to know the experience to our experience and knowledge to our experience to what's the good way to do the rapid assessment. Thank you.
Great. Anna, thank you so much. Yeah, that would be lovely, really. Thank you so much for your comment. So we are going, thank you so much for all your comments. It's very interesting, actually. So we are going to start with the model, with the next model. So in this model, we are going to understand the importance of gender analysis to carry out a gender rapid assessment in tourism. So if we want to include gender equality in tourism, we have to be familiar with gender analysis in general terms. So so a gender analysis is I would like to share this kind of knowledge that I have developed through all these years working on gender and tourism. So for me, a gender analysis in tourism, first, it's an analytical and critical process that unpack power dynamic in a specific context, sector, or situation. So what I would like to stress from this first point is the critical process. I mean, we have to be critical with the environment in order to really know why a particular situation is happening, right? When we carry our gender analysis in any sector, in this case in tourism, we want to transform these activities to be gender sensitive, right? And the only way to do this is from a critical point of view. You may know, of course, that gender equality is a human rights issue, right? So in order to really unpack how important are human rights, taking into account gender as a mainstream process for human rights, we have to include the critical process. To be critical is not something bad, it's a good thing, because if we really love the sector, and if we love the sector, we want to improve it, right? And the best things to do it is from a critical point of view. I mean, these are the challenge, these are the opportunities, of course, but these are the actions to overcome all this challenge, right? So for that reason, since we are proposing gender analysis in tourism from a critical point of view to be able to include gender equality 100%, we are exploring how gendered power dynamics contribute to discrimination, inequality, and subordination. We have to unpack power dynamic. When I'm telling you this, for example, we have to understand how the lack of services are reducing the opportunity for women to participate in a meaningful way in employment or as women entrepreneurs. So we are unpacking all the powers dynamic, the cultural norm, the social norm, the gender norm. So this is something very important to do it. When we are unpacking this power dynamic, this process also has an impact in us as gender specialists, right? Why this is happening? Because when you are doing this, you want to promote the power with. This means that you want to work together with gender sensitive actors. You want to be involved in a team that is a gender sensitive team, right? But you also want to promote the power within. I mean, I am actively involved for gender advocacy. This is something quite linked with gender advocacy. This is not only a piece of document that I'm going to deliver and that's it. No, I want to promote gender advocacy because I really want to improve the quality of life of women, girls, and men. Of course, gender issue is not only about women, it's about men as well. So for that reason, gender advocacy is something very important. Mira right now was talking about, just now, about gender responsive budget. In order to reach gender responsive budget for tourist development, gender advocacy is something very important because we have to organize the ideas. We have to work with the right people, with the right data. We have to talk with the right people in order to understand, to disseminate the importance of gender responsive budget for tourist development and what it's going to be this impact for women to have a better business, to have a better job, and for policymaking in tourism as well. This is something very good for policymaking as well, because if you have, for example, a gender responsive budget in a policymaking, you are going to invest the money in a very meaningful way because you have a very good understanding of what is happening in that particular context, because gender analysis is one of the best ways to really understand inequalities, to really understand sustainability. So this is something very useful for you to know. Another point that we like to share with you, a gender analysis in tourism, it is aware that women and girls are the most affected by gender inequality and power imbalance. Unfortunately, this is the case, even though, of course, we have to include men, marginalized actors, but we have to be aware that women and girls are the most affected by gender inequality. We have the data. I mean, UN Women has beautiful data, a very good data, how, for example, violence is affecting mostly women or girls, how the lack of health and reproductive rights are having a very negative impact in how the lack, of sexual and reproductive rights are having a negative impact in women and girls. Feminicide is something that is a very tragic, is a tragic situation that we have to face in so many countries. So women and girls are the most affected by gender inequality. Then a gender analysis in tourism, it integrates other marginalizations categories such as race, age, disability, class, ethnicity, sexuality, or level of education. We have to be, this is very important. I mean, when we carry out a gender analysis in tourism, it's not only about women and men as a general category of analysis. We have to include other kind of category. For example, what Kosana said right now, she was talking about women that live in rural areas. So maybe the gender analysis that we want to carry out is going to be a gender analysis based on the context of rural women working in tourism versus urban women that are working in tourism, from different age, from different nationalities, from different race as well. You can do that. And that's going to be very good for your gender analysis, because we are going to the detail of the why this is happening. Because women with a very high level of the education, they don't face so many inequalities as women that they don't have that kind of level of education, right? So we have to compare the different situation, and this is through the inclusion of this kind of categories. Disability also is a very important category that I would like to stress. Women with disabilities face many inequalities and discriminations. The access to and control over resources is a matter of concern for women with disabilities. Recently, in a Congress on tourism and disability, I highlight that, for example, right now, when we think about women with disability in tourism, we think about them just as tourists. I mean, we want to provide the service for them to be able to enjoy the experience of tourism, right? But we also have to think that, of course, these women, they want to work in tourism. So maybe we have to improve the infrastructure for them to be able to have a job in tourism, right? Or maybe to create a business in tourism. So we have to go beyond with this kind of analysis to have a better picture of this reality. And the last point, which is very important, as I told you, we have to identify opportunity as a key part of the process. This is not only about talents, it is also about opportunities, because the opportunities are going to guide the actions that we are going to include in that gender analysis in tourism. So basically, a gender analysis in tourism, first, this is about what we find in a particular context. So we are answering the what, but we also want to answer the why. This is like what is behind this, what is happening, right? And the why is one of the most important questions that we have to answer in a gender analysis. Why this is happening? What are the main factors to have this context, this situation? Why women are facing more barriers than men to access to this asset that is so important to be successful in tourist development, for example, right? And then we have to answer the how. These are the mechanism, okay, the mechanism that support a particular situation linked to discrimination or inequality. But we also have to answer these three main questions when we face an opportunity. Okay, what is the opportunity that I see here? Why this is opportunity is a reality? Because with the why, maybe you are going to be able to identify stakeholders, key experts, key tools, something that are promoting that opportunity, right? And how this is the mechanism, how they are, for example, communicating that opportunity, how it can take advantage of that opportunity and include it in tourist development for a meaningful impact for gender equality, right? So this is a gender analysis in tourism. Another point that I would like to stress here is that I truly believe that gender analysis in tourism, it improves the current tourist framework. I truly believe of that. I mean, I know that you have a very good knowledge of the tourist framework to identify or to analyze, for example, sustainable tourism, tourism and economic development. Now we have to face, for example, blue economy, circular economy. All these kind of frameworks are going to be improved when we include gender equality. So we have to include in the gender analysis this kind of improvement. I mean, how I'm going to improve, for example, the analysis on the Agenda 2030 and the SDGs linked to tourism, right? So gender equality actually is going to improve that, because through gender analysis, you're going to be able to promote actions and maybe indicators, better indicators to measure the impact of tourism for sustainability, right? So this is very important. This is another point that I would like to stress here. A gender analysis is essential for all types of tourism and tourist organization. I have seen in many places that sometimes they think that gender analysis is only a matter for a social department, for example, or is a women issue, or is something that is only linked to the women department, right? And this is not the case. I mean, this is for everybody, for all type of tourism, for all type of organization, for all type of professional that we have in tourism. So we have to engage through the gender analysis to all these kind of stakeholders, because they are a key part of the entire process that we want to promote through our gender analysis as well. As I told you before, a gender analysis is an advocacy tool. Most of the time, you have to think about that. You have to be very strategic when you deliver a gender analysis as well. So this is important. So for example, in my professional experience, when I am drawing up a gender analysis in tourism, I would like to also think, taking into account the last UNWV pillars on gender and tourism, the measurement pillar, which is linked to tourist policy making. All the time, I like to think about the best way to strengthen the capacity of tourist authorities to plan and manage tourism in a way that first promote gender equality, support equal opportunities, and results in decent labor, income, and prosperity for women and men. All the time I draw up the gender analysis thinking on this, right? Because we have to, it's needed to have a purpose. Why I'm doing this? What do I want to achieve with the gender analysis? The gender analysis is not a document that you prepare for random. You need to plan, you have to organize all the elements that you want to include in your gender analysis. I'm checking here the chat. I have from Jasmine. She's saying that a gender analysis is also considered as an indirect way for raising awareness and sensitizing communities about gender equality. That is true. For that reason, Jasmine, very good. Thank you so much for that comment. For that reason, the inclusion of civil society and stakeholder is very important. You know why? Because the reason that Jasmine is sharing with us through the chat, but also because sometimes, even though everybody knows tourism, at the same time, it's very difficult to understand the real impact of tourism. So through the gender analysis, you will have the opportunity to tell them, to civil society and stakeholders, what is the real impact of tourism in their daily life, right? Tourism is not only about tourists, it's not about plane, it's a policy-making issue. It's something related with sustainable development, with economic development, and sometimes, and I have seen in my professional life, when I go to the field, some civil society linked to women concerns, at the very beginning, for them it's very difficult to understand how important is tourism. And when they do the click, it's like, oh my God, this is a very important sector. And the gender consequences are very, very urgent to overcome. So thank you, Jasmine, for that for that comment through the chat. Thank you so much. So let's continue. So I would like to offer you today this definition on gender analysis in tourism. This is actually a definition that is coming from the field, but I think that this is the definition that I used when I have to draw up a gender analysis in tourism, and I'm going to read it out. A gender analysis in tourism shows the difference and inequalities between women and men, as much detail as possible, their causes, consequences, and the way in which women are visible or not. This will break down the barriers to eliminate gender gaps at the core of tourist development and will put into practice gender-sensitive actions. So this is like the definition that I would like to offer you. I think that it's going to be very helpful for you to guide your gender analysis, your rapid gender analysis in tourism. And this definition for me is very, very important, but mostly because lead us to have the gender responsive tourism. So a gender responsive tourism is based on this definition. A gender responsive tourism is going to be possible through the gender analysis. It's not, as I told you before, this is beyond the goodwill intentions. This is beyond that. It's something we want to put into practice, something real. You know, the center stage project, for example, is something real. It's a very concrete actions to promote gender equality in tourist development. It's definitely based on gender responsive tourism, right? So we have to see this kind of action, and you have to include it in your rapid gender assessment, in the gender analysis that you are going to draw up. I'm going to read out the chat. Yes, of course, Ansam, thank you so much. Ansam is sharing with us through the chat that means we need to list the solution, not only showing the real situation, of course, all the time. Solutions are linked to opportunities, but also linked to challenge, right? So the gender analysis actually is to really disseminate the solutions that you have to include gender equality in tourist development. Anna, would you like to talk, please? Or
I'm sorry. Just I want to say that the question that my colleague Ansam mentioned. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, don't worry. It's okay. So let's now I'm going to offer you some objectives. Okay. So towards a gender analysis in tourism, these are the 4 main objectives that I would like to share with you. So the first objective of a gender analysis in tourism is to analyze the benefit that tourism can bring, as well as determine its impact on the reduction of gender inequalities. This is the first objective, right? Then examine the causes that undermine the capacity of tourism in achieving gender equality and women empowerment. So we have to see this, we have to think about this. For that reason, when we carry out a gender analysis in tourism, we need to have a very good knowledge on tourist development, right? This is one of the key part of all this, to really capture where are the entry points for gender equality, right? Then the third objective is to strengthen the statement, no sustainability of tourism without gender equality. This is a very important statement that I would like to highlight today. I truly believe on this statement because I have seen that when gender equality is not included in tourism, we are not going to reach sustainable indicators at all, from a quantitative, but also from a qualitative point of view, right? So we have to put forward all this. And the Agenda 2030, let me tell you something about Agenda 2030 and the SDGs. This is the first agenda that is that is disseminating that we have to mainstream gender equality across sustainable development. This is the first time that a sustainable agenda is saying this. So we have to take this opportunity to mainstream gender equality into its development as well. And the gender analysis is the tool to do that, right? And the fourth objective is to improve the veracity of tourist analysis framework in the analysis of sustainability and development. This last objective is quite linked to the statement, the sustainability of tourism without gender equality, because we are going to improve all kinds of analysis linked to tourism. Now we have this new analysis on climate change. I have seen beautiful research and beautiful conference on gender and climate change. We have to study that, and we have to bring it to tourist development, because we are going to improve the sector for sure. So this is something quite important. So a gender analysis as a summary wants to transform tourism grounded on gender equality. That is the main reason why we are doing this, right? So all professionals and tourist organizations should know the importance of gender analysis in the sector, right? Tourism is a mainstream activity, sometimes it's very complex, but we have to push forward the right effort to unpack tourism from a gender point of view. This is something that we have to promote all the time. So a gender analysis is a key tool to achieve sustainability in tourism for sure. So I am finishing with this word, this model. So as a summary, I would like to tell you first that gender analysis in tourism is sustainable development plus, because the statement that I already told you, sustainability in tourism without gender equality, also is a key step for gender mainstreaming in tourism as well. A gender analysis is not the gender mainstreaming in itself, it's a tool to be able in the future to mainstream gender equality in tourism. To be able to mainstream gender equality in tourism, we need a lot of many kind of gender analysis in tourism development, and the rapid gender assessment is one of the pieces of all this process, right? So a gender analysis in tourism is much more than simply adding women to the subject. You know that, it's beyond that, definitely. And it's a systematic work to reduce the gaps that keep tourism from achieving gender equality and women empowerment. This is also some thought that I would like to share with you. So let's continue with the other model. So welcome to the workshop on rapid gender assessment in tourism. In this model, we are going to answer the question why rapid gender assessment in tourism sector. So let's continue. What is a rapid gender assessment in the tourist sector? So a rapid gender in the tourist sector is the first step to conduct a deeper gender analysis of tourism. This is like the starting point to a bigger kind of work related to gender analysis in tourist development. So a rapid gender assessment in the tourist sector provides essential elements about the role and responsibility of tourism to reduce gender inequalities. This is a rapid gender assessment. So for that reason, you have to identify what are the essential elements that I want to include. What are the essential elements that I want to support through my rapid gender assessments, sorry. So because we are talking about essential elements, we are also talking about urgent concerns that must be integrated in the short and medium terms in programming or within the framework of a particular project. For that reason, it's a rapid gender assessment. We are taking essential elements and all the actions that we are going to include in our rapid gender assessment are going to be implemented in a short or in medium terms. So it's, for example, with the COVID-19, this is a very urgent situation for tourism. So for that reason, we have to include the essential elements in our rapid gender assessment. So these are the steps to draw up a rapid gender assessment in tourist sector. So let's go with the first one, which is identify what are the priority challenges to overcome. So here we have to identify the challenge, right? We have to make like a kind of list. We have to prioritize what are the main challenges that we have to face with all this. We have to include, if we want, stakeholders, some kind of consultation to have a better acknowledge about what are these challenges. Then we go to step number 2. Based on this identification, we develop our research questions. The research question is a statement of what I want to learn, what do I want to achieve through my rapid gender assessment in tourism. Let me offer you an advice. Please try to avoid the verb promote, because if we promote something, I mean, we want more active verbs as a research question, and also avoid the kind of objectives. For example, this project aimed to mainstream gender equality in tourism. Try to avoid that kind of objective, because are not going to work really. Right, mostly in a rapid gender assessment, which is a small piece, is the first exercise that you have to do to something bigger, right? Then the third step is the collection and review of secondary data. I'm not including primary data. Why? Because rapid gender assessment most of the times are carried out taking into account only secondary data. This means that you can review assessment, policy documents, articles, books, and maybe if you want, you can make some consultation to key stakeholders to have a better view of the challenge, and to be sure that your research questions are the best one for the rapid gender assessment. Then we have to analyze the information using your matrix. Today we are going to see the first matrix that is quite linked with the first 2 steps, and the next section I'm going to explain you this matrix. Okay, then we have to analyze the main gender inequalities in tourism and opportunities for their reduction. This is the core part of the rapid gender assessment. Here's when how we share the knowledge, the opportunities, the challenge, how we organize our ideas. Then we have to give recommendations. In recommendations, these are the actions, and then the step forward. And the step forward are how you are going to put into practice the recommendation, which are the action as well. And finally, we have to share the rapid gender assessment with the main stakeholders. We have to disseminate the importance, and this is quite linked to gender advocacy as well. So this is the challenge and the gaps matrix. As you can see here in the vertical axis, we have the main UNWTO pillars on gender and tourism. And then in the horizontal axis, we have the 3 main questions that you have to answer. The first question is, what are the challenges and gaps your rapid gender assessment will address? Then you make the list based on the pillars. Then why are you addressing them, and how your rapid gender assessment will address these gaps. So this is the first matrix, which is quite linked with the first 2 steps to draw up a rapid gender assessment. And this is going to be actually your homework, the homework that you have to do. So I invite to all of you to carry out this homework, because it's very useful to organize your ideas. So for this case, each member state or each participant of each organization, because I do know that many people is watching these videos, should identify the main gaps and challenge on gender and tourism in your context. Then you have to decide and prioritize what will be included in your rapid gender assessment. Then you have to fill out the challenge and gaps matrix, the one that you saw right now. And then you have to develop at least 2 research objectives for your rapid gender assessment. So this is the homework. We are finishing. So thank you so much for your attention. And please check the rest of the video link to the workshop as well. So don't forget, remember to complete your homework before our next scheduled session. And thank you so much for your attention. It has been a pleasure for me and for us and for Ben, for everybody. So thank you so much.